In this lesson, we'll place some doors in our model by using the Extrusion tool. So let's get modeling. Okay, so it looks like we have about half the voids in our model here. I'm going to finish this out because I know I'm going to have a couple more compartments. I've got some drawers in this area, and I'm even going to have a little swing door here. So it's going to be nice to have those voids in place. So we can really quickly do that. So we'll jump to our front view. We'll create some reference planes. And again, we're going to go with the pick line, and remember our wood's an inch thick, so we're going to set that offset to an inch thick. And I'm going to really quickly fly through this process now that we're familiar with how to set those. So we'll start here at the top. So I'm simply going to click and drag. Click this all the way across and drag. And I don't need too much of it outside of the extents. That can eat up a lot of time if I'm spending most of my time stretching out these reference lines or reference planes. I just need a little bit of it past the model so I can erase it later. But I'm going to make sure I get all my pieces of wood in there. That way I don't have any empty gaps later after we place the rest of these voids into our model. So we're just about done. I just need to do a bottom piece for this area and we will be complete. And this one can actually be the reference plane for these several pieces. Alright, so we have this side left to do and we are set. So we are now ready to model in the rest of our void form. So we'll go to Create, Void Form, Void Extrusion, and we'll start here with our compartment. These are all going to be rectangles, so I'll choose the rectangle tool, and then we'll start modeling here. And again, it's such a great thing that we are separated by an inch thickness here. That way we can create all these forms in one hit, and also adjust them in one hit, saving us a lot of time. And this very last one here, there's no thickness on the very bottom. This is more of an upside down C form. So I'm liking where we're at right now, so I'm going to hit the green check mark. I'm going to jump to the floor plan view again, and we'll make one quick adjustment. Dragging those in, accounting for thickness. And in 3D view, you can see we've completed our voids. So now let's jump to our first section here, and let's model in a set of glass doors. So we have our compartment up here on top that'll be empty. But down here, we'll have a set of tinted glass doors with some handles. So let's go ahead and set those. So I'm going to jump to my front view. And when I'm working with a situation like this where I have a couple of different materials touching, I like to have a nice gap in between those materials. It creates a nice reveal or a nice space in between. So not only are these materials differentiated by how they're represented graphically, but you can see the space in between materials and you can see how things are put together. And that's part of that detail that's really important, especially when you're doing maybe something for interior architecture view or something. So in this case, what I would do is I'll set a reference plane as a gap to create a gap, maybe 1/8 of an inch. A bit exaggerated, but it's easy to see around the edge of this. That way we know that these are glass doors set in nicely. And they'll be connected with some hardware. So let's really quickly set those reference planes. So we'll go to Create, Reference Planes. Select line, and we'll create maybe 1/8 of an inch. We'll say 1/4 inch gap. It's a bit exaggerated, but it's easy to see. So once I have that set, I'm simply going to go on the top, bottom, left, and right of our first selection here. Again, I'm going to click and drag those model lines or those reference planes beyond my extents because later on I might need to get rid of those. So again, clicking and dragging. I think I have all 4 in place. I'm good shape. Let's do one more to locate the midpoint here. Once we find our midpoint, that way we can split the doors up nice and even. All right, so now we can create our extrusions. Now that we have that in place, so we'll go to Create, Extrusion, and we want those to be 1 inch thick, so we'll change the depth to 1 inch. And there's no offset. And we're going to go with a rectangle, and all we need to do is follow our offset reference planes here. Simply clicking and dragging, and now we have our first piece in place. If I wanted to, I can go and continue this process on with all the rest of areas, but we'll have to set some reference planes first. But let's hit this green check mark. Let's go to 3D view, see if there's any changes we need to make. Let's change this material. So I'm going to click on this extrusion we just created. And here in the Properties window, you'll notice under Materials and Finish, we have Materials. And I'm going to click on that, and it'll expose this little box. And now we can actually create a material to associate with this door. So Revit has some by default, and you can actually go in and create your own. Luckily, we have glass already in place, so I'm going to go with that. The only change I want to make to that is I don't want it to be blue glass. I'm going to maybe give it more of a dark tint look. So maybe we could go with, let's see how this dark gray will look. And you can adjust its transparency down here below. So it's really high right now. So it's a light color, so I'm going to bump down the transparency just a bit to 60. And let's see how this looks. I'm going to click apply. Okay, see how this looks. Yeah, up against this material, you really can't tell. So what we're going to need to do is now change the material of our wood here. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to take the same approach. I'm going to go to my properties window, and we're going to change materials. This time we'll actually have to create one. So I'm going to go to this little sphere here with the plus on it. That lets me create material. So I'm going to create new material, and we're going to rename it. Right-clicking, rename, and we'll call this one, let's say cherry wood. We'll make this out of cherry here. So click OK. Actually, let me go back in there again, and we'll go back to materials. You can see my title here. But the only thing we need to do is give it a shading or a color. So let's give it a color that will make it differentiate between that glass. So we'll go the wood with a nice little red cherry tint to it. This will work for me. I'll click apply, OK. And you can see now there is some differentiation between what's going on with the glass and the wood. So let's click on that glass once again. And I think we can assign a darker color to that one. It'll make it a lot easier to see what's going on. So we'll go back to materials. And again, you can kind of tweak this as you go to get it exactly where you want it. I'm going to go with a darker color here. And when I add a darker color, I'm also going to increase its transparency. So let's take it to 75 and see how that looks. Apply, OK. That works. I know that there's a piece of glass there and it's tinted, and you can kind of see through it just a bit. So we're not totally done yet. Let's jump to our floor plan view, and let's make sure our glass is placed nicely inside of our model here. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to disassociate its work plane. So you'll see this rectangle here. Click on that, and you'll see that's disassociate work plane. Now I can move this particular shape here anywhere I want to, not just on one particular work plane. So I'm going to click my move button. I'm simply going to bring him inside of our model. And when I go to 3D view, you can see he's placed nicely in there. So let's take this same approach, and let's see if we can quickly add some drawers to our smaller compartments here. So again, we'll really quickly jump to our front view. We'll create some offsets using reference planes. We'll pick the line, and again, we want that to be about 1/4 inch thick, just so we can really see that. And we're focusing on our smaller compartments, so we'll place those offsets right here. Really easy. Oops, looks like that one didn't set properly. It's okay, we'll set it here. Again, clicking and dragging beyond those extents. We'll do the same for this one. And when we begin placing the face in for these elements, we're going to go with a different one. We don't really need to go with the glass. These aren't going to be glass doors here. Let me bring back my reference plane here. I'll make sure I offset that again 1/4 inch. And that is it. Perfect. So we're going to add the drawers to these last two compartments here. So now we'll go to create. We're going to go to extrusion again. And we're going to create an extrusion for these areas. Rectangle tool. Go from one corner to the next. And again, since these are separated, there's much distance in between these two, and the lines aren't touching, we can create these two forms all in one hit here. Green check mark. I'm going to go to 3D view. I see my forms are in place. Let's assign a material to this one here. So we'll click on it. We'll go to materials, just like we did with our glass door and our wood here. And let's create a different one. We'll go to create new material. We'll rename this one. And we'll call it, we'll say drawer, face of our drawers. We'll call it gray drawers. Just something really obvious that you'll always remember when you're working in this project. Okay, so now I can click on that. Actually, we'll go back to my materials. Occasionally, you'll jump back out of that window. So we'll go back to our gray drawer. Let's assign a nice color to that. Looks like it has a gray color. Let's darken that up just a tad. Click OK. Apply, OK. And you'll see we have a nice gray color attached to that. And all we need to do is change the color associated with our wood here. So I'm going to click on that. Material. Let's look for the one we just created, our cherry wood. I'll click OK. And now I can take the same approach to each one of our wood casings here. So we'll go to our material. It's already there. OK. See if we could select several. So we'll select this one, this one. I think we can get this all done in one hit here. Should be able to go to the materials. Perfect. OK. Apply. There we go. So now we have our drawers in place. We also have our glass door in place. And one last adjustment. Let's jump back to our floor plan view. And let's make sure our drawer faces are lined up flush with the exterior of our model. So again, we'll click on that, disassociate work plane, move button, and we're simply going to line them up with the outside edge of our model. And I'm going to jump to 3D view to make sure everything looks good. And I'm liking where we're at. Perfect. So at this point, we can start adding more details like hardware and fixtures to this casework family. And we'll jump into that in the next lesson.